I don't think you've understood the concept of cycling at home. It's not your normal bike.
No, I know, and I've trashed the carpet. But anyway,
How
are you, boss?
Well, we're doing this recording in Zoom, and you've just finished a workout.
I have just finished a workout. I've got a stupid bikey type Peloton-y type thing, and I've just literally finished a workout, so I'm very ready for a dram.
Oh,
funnily enough.
Well, it is Series 7, Episode 2, Gordon. We are cracking through. What a great episode that was. Some great comments about the Speyside Festival.
Yes, and it's festival season.
It is. Gordon, festivals. We've got Campbelltown, as we record, going on right now.
Oh.
And the Feis, of course, is ahead of us.
Campbelltown, what a place. Not much goes on in Campbelltown throughout the rest of the year. But this year, having seen some of the photos and some of the stuff going on in Campbelltown, with all the new distilleries and things going on, it's really an amazing sort of region now. I mean, so different to even 3 years ago. And I've got something I want to discuss with you as part of what we're going to talk about Campbelltown, and obviously Islay coming up as well.
We have got a great episode, so stay tuned. A tour guide will give us his unique perspective, an insider's guide to being a private tour guide. And I know on this podcast a few seasons ago, you gave us a little tour of Scotland as how you would do it. So I maybe would like to come back and do a 2023 refreshment.
Yes, we can do that.
So we've got
absolutely
loads of stuff to happen.
What are you drinking, my friend?
Well, there's the thing. It's got to be either Campbelltown or Islay. And I had finished my Lagavulin 16. I'm holding it up to the camera. I don't know why I'm doing that. But Smokehead, because I can get access to a wonderful single malt from Islay that we bottle independently and call it Smokehead, they've released a lovely finish in a tequila cask.
Tequila. It makes me happy.
This was launched by our colleague Mikey in New York. I had a lot of bagels in the morning. Then he set out in the afternoon to launch Terminado in the States, and it went down just extraordinarily well. And it's a wonderful, really fresh, it was a clean flavour to the lovely Islay single malt going on here.
No, absolutely. I think what's interesting about it is, firstly, let's be honest, it may not be the same here, but tequila in the States is huge at the moment. It's going to overtake vodka, I think. I'm reliably informed, which just shows you the popularity. But this has been done, like most Smokeheads, been done to just finish brilliant Islay whiskey, single malt whiskey from one of the 9 distilleries, which are about to celebrate their open days. And we finished it in tequila casks. So it gives a fresh vibrancy. And what's really interesting about it, Gordon, is that, tequila generally, it's got a fairly distinctive style. And I think in this country, we still hark back a little bit to doing it in shots with salt and lemon when we were younger. Whereas in the States, it's much more a sipping thing now. And tequila popularity is to the point there's not enough agave. There's certainly not enough tequila casks. We were very lucky to get some. So this is going to be a limited release. But what I love about it, it's taking great Islay whiskey, that peaty note that we love it, and we are absolutely finishing it in a sort of fresh, unique type of way. I think the only whiskey that reminds me of that, or one that's done very similar, is I think Kilchoman did a mezcal finish, which of course is effectively a smoky tequila. But I absolutely love this. I think if you just want to drink Islay whiskey in a different way, you're not too hung up on, the different types of distillery. Smokehead delivers smoke. It delivers taste across the sherry bomb, or sherry blast, the rum rebel, all these types of whiskies. And we did a stout one as well.
I think that's what Islay's going to is great for. It's not just relying on the past and on tradition, as you say. We are acquiring Islay whiskey and doing this with it. As others, and it really keeps Islay vibrant and looking forward as well as looking back. And I think it's hugely important. What have you got?
Well, I've got one of my favorite whiskies from last year. I drank this about, I don't own a bottle. I have a sample. I drank this about 2 or 3 times last year. Glen-Scotia Victoriana. I have to say, this is a beautiful, beautiful whiskey. It's a cask strength NAS whiskey from Glen-Scotia. Fabulous whiskey, really, really tasty. I remember drinking it in the Ben Nevis, a lovely bar in the West End here, and it's just beautiful. It's not overtly strong at 54.2%, but it's got this rich sort of toasty style. You know, I think it's mainly bourbon casks, but it's really got a right depth of flavor. You know, I'm a big fan of this whiskey. I think it's you know, it's got a sort of dark fruitiness to it. There's a bit of dark chocolate. Maybe we'd intimate a bit of sherry cask in there. I don't know, but beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Strongly, great whiskey, great whiskey. And Glen Scotia, to be honest, having seen what's been going on in Campbelltown, and you know, lots of great stuff going on at Glen Scotia. And you know, obviously Springbank's in a little different place. We'll come on to that in a minute.
Yeah.
But
Well,
in Scotia, they've really done a good job.
They have done that, and the reason I come in there, Gordon, is just because our friends of the show, Neil Ridley, Joel Harrison, well, I think this are down there at the moment, and Joel Harrison, along with Master Blender Michael Henry, are taking you through the 6 individual liquids that are vatted together to make that Victoriana that you're tasting right now. That's part of the festival. How good would that be?
Beautiful. Yeah, no.
Great.
And you know, I know also Neil and Joel did a really on Neil particularly, I think, who's into his music, did a really interesting Sounds of the Distillery with Glen Scotia. So they made a record, I believe, including sounds from the distillery. Fabulous. But yeah, they're doing some really nice stuff, and really good to see Glen Scotia, let's face it, coming out the shadow of Springbank, I think, a little bit. And with all those new distilleries down there, you know, you can just go down there and drink great whiskey, which is fabulous. A bit like Speyside, a bit like Islay. But I'm just seeing a lot more focus in Campbelltown, which is great, because I think it's great for the town, but great for the region, because there's going to be, what, 6 or 7 distilleries there fairly soon, which is fabulous.
That is fabulous. And I can't get away from that soundscape that Joel did there. I just think back in the day, some of the still houses, especially Glengoyne, I can imagine some of the things you'd capture on microphone might be a bit more fruity than they're capturing right now.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Get out my effing still house. What you having for lunch? But I'm sure it's a wonderful.
And even yesterday, you know we've got Springbank, Glen Scotia, Glengyle. There's other distilleries. Even yesterday, Brave New Spirits, which a good friend Paul Dempsey works for, is plans to open a new distillery near Machrihanish. So, you know, I don't know if I can't keep up. I think that might be 7, or maybe even 8. But that's really brilliant for that part of the world, because Campbelltown is, for those who've not been, it's at the end of the road. It's like on the sort of road at the end of the world in a way. And it's probably, you know, it was a big producing region, and it's not easy to get to. And luckily, it's sort of a little detour if you're going to Islay, not too far. And they've really capitalized, quite rightly, in upweighting the Campbelltown Whiskey Festival in the sort of 3 days before Islay, which is great. So if you want a fantastic whiskey experience on the West Coast, there's 2 weeks to come. But of course, let's not forget about the Spirit of Speyside, which we've just done, which was fabulous this year, as you and I know. And it's festival season. May is the time to come to Scotland for whiskey.
It is. I was trying to find the exact tourist numbers for this year that's whiskey related because of our guest later on, Gordon. But I couldn't get them for this year. It's usually done the last couple of years, but exponentially growing.
Yes.
From even the last 10 years, I saw a graph, you know, quadrupling in 10 years. But just, we might not have time to get into it, but Campbelltown, the history of it all as well, just to go down there. When we've got that famous book, Arthur Bernard, the Victorian whiskey blogger, and he went around Scotland, over 30 distilleries, 30 in 1885, 86, you know, and they unfortunately, sadly, came a cropper. Places like Hazelburn, Loch End, Reichlachen, Ardlusa, Lochhead, these distilleries just fell silent. A lot of the damage done in the 1920s. Our very own Tamdhu as well closed in the 1920s. Most of the lowland whiskies closed in the 1920s. So it's wonderful, as you were saying, it's now coming back to life down there at Campbelltown. So the story's starting again.
It's really, really exciting. I'm very excited for for everybody and for those there's some good people down there. I love the guys at Springbank, love the guys at Glen Scotia. Really, really good to hear. So
and
I'm enjoying my Victoriana.
Yes, that's a Victoriana. And since we're on Springbank, Gordon, the quick word about some of the whiskies.
Well, I mean, we've seen a unique situation, I think, with Springbank in the last couple of years. And one thing that caught my eye this week, which I was like, this sort of, for those people who, now, let's be honest, whiskey pricing is a very touchy subject at the moment. And look, when you work in the industry, you sort of understand a lot of the dynamics which push price, which have caused the situation that we're in. And there's a really interesting release that came out this week, which was an independent bottling from Whiskey Sponge. Now that's Angus McRae and and Decadent Drinks, and they've released I think it was this week, I'm not sure, a Whiskey Sponge. It's a 26-year-old from Springbank. So 26-year-old whiskey in a sherry cask. Now they make great whiskey, but this whiskey is £970. So if you think of that from the perspective of a 26-year-old sherry cask whiskey, £960. That either A, shows people the price of whiskey in the trading market. So that, I think, shows you maybe firstly what that cask might have been bought for, price wise, because Springbank, let's face it, it's in a very unique position at the moment. And so, for an independent bottling of a 26-year-old Springbank at cask strength, I'm sure it's great. £970. Now, it's never been like that. And this is down to the secondary market, the market of casks going round the market, which, we historically have bought for chieftains and traded and done all that type of thing. And it just shows you that the supply and the availability of great whiskey is really limited at the moment. And the supply, the price that even sort of whiskies at, 18-year-old sherry cask whiskies trade at is way higher than it has ever been. And it's not just that's pushing price. That is pushing price, unfortunately. But also, all the other things that we've spoken about, the inflation, the energy, all these types of things, the glass, the fact that you have to order more glass than you ever have done, and the delivery is of a different sort of, they'll tell you the delivery. It's a bit better now. But these are the types of things that, everybody wants to honestly try and maintain a price that's as good as they can for their whiskey. But when you see an independent bottling of Springbank for 26 years old at £970, I reckon 10 years ago that would have been 200, maybe. So that, or even less. And I think that shows you where the industry is at the moment in terms of the supply of whiskey.
And do you think, Gordon, the public have caught up with this? Because I see a lot on the chat on I'm out tastings as well. People are grumbling about the price, and it's and I did look. We just cannot make it. If it's not in the warehouses, we cannot make it.
There is that. Look, we look at Tamdhu, for example. It's completely sold out. We don't have any more whiskey than what we have. So look, I think there's a lot of factors at play, and people need to decide, like they all do. But the big thing about this is that bottle's sold out. At 970 quid. Yes. Now, I'm afraid probably not everybody's going to be drinking that. And we're going to come on to Feis. We're going to talk about Feis. We're going to talk about, I've worked for Bowmore in the past. We've seen queues of people outside Bowmore, and we saw it a little bit with us at Tamdhu as well. Queues of people buying the Dalby Alley, which is a really, at Tamdhu. And not everybody's drinking them. So I mean, it's just a nature of where we are in the world at the moment. But
part of the history news, Gordon, is I know we don't talk about auctions, but we will. But as we're recording this at the end of the week of May 25, May 26, in 2023, the Whiskey Hammer is an auction site, and they're out of north of Scotland in Ellon, and it closes this weekend. And the top bid, it's £78,000 as a bottle of Bowmore 52-year-old. In brackets, ARC 52. So, and that's the current bid, 78,000 quid. So,
I hope I don't get outbid. I've got a budget. I've set aside a budget of £250,000 for that. So
oh my goodness, it's worth going through. I'm going through all the auction. Whiskey Hammer, great. We'll do our auction. We'll try and go and visit them.
But it just shows you the situation that we're in. And, You know, there's plenty of great whiskey out there for people to drink. It's a trend-driven business, you know, and people
And Gordon, can I just
go
cut
where
you
the trend
across?
is.
Can I just say, what would life be like if whiskey was free? And can I just, since we're talking about Campbelltown, take you back to 1963 to the legendary Andy Stewart, one of Scotland's great entertainers, who had a #1 hit single with Campbelltown Loch. And here's the lyrics. Now, Campbelltown Loch is a beautiful place, but the price of whiskey is grim. How nice it would be if the whiskey was free and the loch was filled up to the brim. And then the chorus, and then it goes on. I'd buy a yacht with the money I've got. I'd anchor it out in the bay. If I wanted a sip, I'd go in for a dip. I'd be swimming by night and by day. Oh, Campbelltown Loch, I wish you were whiskey. And so it goes on.
Ladies and gentlemen, I apologise for Mr.
I thought that
Dallas.
was an apt way of, even in the 1960s, it was expensive and they wanted it to be free. So it's a story that's been going on, but it's maybe hitting more extremes than it did back in the 60s. That was my point. So join in that wonderful song. Now,
Gordon, just a little bit on what you've been up to. You've been travelling a little bit.
I've been out and about, down south. I've been abroad, but I picked up an interview when I was in Sweden, Stockholm.
Sweden.
We had a few weeks ago friends on from Sundsvall when we were on the Cinderella ship, one of the oldest Swedish
Cinderella whiskey cruise.
So I was back in Sweden a couple of weeks ago with one of the biggest. Not in Stockholm, 3 hours north of Stockholm. It's just a 4-minute interview, Gordon, but I want you to pay close attention to about 2 minutes in to how many glasses were poured. So Anders Nostrom of SMAD Whiskey Club. Here we go. We'll discuss this. Here we go. Let's go to Sweden.
My name is Anders Nostrom, and I'm the chairman of this club in Borlange. And I have been in this position for 12 years.
12 years. Now, where are we?
We are in Borlange, just outside Borlange, a place called Domnarsgården, nearby Dalecarlian River. We can look outside and we see the beautiful Dalecarlian River.
And we're about 3 hours from Stockholm.
Yes,
going north.
Yes, north of Stockholm. Yes.
And what's the club? And how long has the club been going?
The club called Single Malt Academy of Dalecarlia, and we call it SMAD. We're one of Sweden's largest clubs. At this tasting with Glengoyne, we have 170 people on site.
I repeat that, 170 people.
170 people.
And how many whiskies are we tasting?
10.
Is it the same glass?
No, everybody have 10 glasses, so we have poured 1,700 glasses for this tasting.
Oh my goodness! And when did you start pouring that?
11
o'clock this morning.
11 o'clock this morning.
We're now just after 3 o'clock.
Yes.
Yeah. And well, I heard that you have had quite a few tastings. What number of this tasting from 1997?
This is 237 tastings.
So this was the 237th tasting?
Yes.
Wow. So before we talk about Glengoyne, of those 236 tastings, what's been the highlights? Anything that stands out for an amazing length of a club?
Tasting, so we have people from Scotland. We have Richard Patterson several times. Mm-hmm. We have we have Jim McElwee as well from Bruichladdich.
Yes.
We have... That's stand still.
It's been 236. I'm not surprised, Anders. It's quite a lot. We're going to catch up with you later on, so if the names come to you, but that's not a bad pedigree.
No.
You have got 10 whiskies there. That's some tasting. So, and I see some that are not available anywhere in the shops.
Yes.
What's going to be the highlights? You're going to vote on the winner. What do you think will be the first 2 or 3 whiskies in the vote?
I think that some of the cask sample, we have one cask sample is sherry that I think will be one of the 3 best whiskey for tonight.
That's a European oak, single cask.
Yes. Wow. And we have a bourbon as well.
So American oak, bourbon, ex-bourbon barrel.
Yes.
Glengoyne, fully matured.
Yes.
That's going to be.
And we have a single cask, 20-year single cask, who come out in Sweden 3-4 years ago.
And that's an American oak sherry cask.
Yes.
So that's going to be.
And we have the 21, and we have a 25. And we have a teapot dram, I think it's batch 7 or something like that.
Yes, batch 7. So it's a beautiful day here. We're now less than half an hour away from it.
Yes.
Anders, it's been a pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you very much.
And I'm sure this won't be the the last whiskey tasting, there'll be 300, 400, I'm sure it'll keep on going. But what a turnout, what an appetite there must be for whiskey in this area.
Yes.
Why?
Why? Because I think we do tasting that folk people want us to have. And we always take care of all the members. We have like 8 or 10 tastings a year, once a month, not in the summer. And we always try to have good whiskey and good ambassadors for the whiskey.
Yeah. It's a lovely setup out as well here. Really nice place. So let's get to it.
Absolutely.
Speak to you later.
Bye.
Gordon. So, great whiskey club, but would you pour 170 people 10 glasses? That was 4 hours in, and he hadn't finished, and there was about 5.
Was he on his own?
No. There was a team of them.
That's unbelievable.
1,700 glasses.
Now, we've spoken about this, about you. You're dead keen to break the world record, aren't you?
Oh, that must be up there. Yes, I am very keen. I didn't want to take too much. I'm putting the market down here, Gordon. The world's biggest whiskey tasting.
Now, I think it was Bruichladdich, was it not?
It was.
In Sweden, probably.
Yes.
How many people?
I think, I don't have the exact, but I've been on the Guinness Book of Records a few months ago. It's about 3.5 to 3.8, just under 4,000 people.
That must have been one whiskey each.
I don't know what the rules are. I'd have to speak to Mr. Guinness from the Guinness
Book of Records. Norris McWhirter. Is he still around?
He's not. But yes, there must be an official whiskey tasting. Could be one, could be a couple. I also have spoken.
Where would you do that if you wanted to break it?
I have spoken to somebody about this.
Who?
It's a world record. I don't know if I should say, but I do a burn supper in London for a very famous organisation in Scotland that have multiple massive venues that have held international events. And I said, off the top of your head, this was at 2 a.m. at a bar. And he said, it's the best time to get someone to say yes. And they said, I don't see why not.
Maybe we should do it.
I think it should come home. The whiskey world records, whiskey tasting for the number of people, I think it should come home.
I like this. I think we should do it. Everybody, the Whiskey Unscripted World Record.
Is the bid on?
Let's do it. Right. We'll somehow arrange this. Somehow, I'm not quite sure. We might need a few more audience members to turn up. But
we might need a few more audience members. We also need a slight more detail of. We've been talking about how expensive whiskey is. We're going to have to get some whiskey.
Oh, we make whiskey. Yeah, that's quite a lot of bottles, though.
Quite a lot of bottles. Yeah.
So right, okay. We'll have to have a big discussion. But yeah, let's see what we could do. Fabulous interview. And then the other thing I want to tell everybody, Gordon is now. You're heading back to your homeland, aren't you? You're heading back to where you're from. You're heading back to Dallas.
Oh yes,
Dallas. Gordon Dallas is on tour in Dallas.
I've always wanted to do this. Dallas does Dallas, and Dallas is going to Dallas. It's amazing. You know, my mother was Mrs. Dallas, and she was.
Was she in the TV program?
They're from Feis. They were from.
Oh, not in the TV program, right?
Nope. So I suspect there was Fifers possibly going across there to that part of the world. There's other ways of why it was called Dallas, but you know, lots of Scots immigrated out there. So is there a piece of land out there with my name on it? I think there is. It's called Dallas. But I will be going across to Texas to spread the good word of the Isle of Skye whiskey.
Isle of Skye.
Absolutely unbelievable stuff. Great whiskey, blended whiskies from the age 8 right up to age 30.
Unbelievable.
Extraordinary.
Unbelievable. And that's what makes Isle of Skye amazing. For me, it's one of the deepest ranges of blended whiskey in the whole of the world.
Yes.
And, you know, the 8 is fabulous as a everyday dram, mixer, whatever. And the 30 is just sumptuous. And, you know, very rare, wonderful, wonderful whiskey. So fabulous range. And you're going to spread the good word in Dallas.
I certainly will be. And part of my good word will be, I'm not going to give you all it now, but starts its life the year Prohibition ends in America.
1933.
Hey, this is correct.
And the first year of Ian MacLeod.
Yes.
Not called Ian MacLeod at that point.
So this is, you know, was it a coincidence? Was it designed to partly go across to the States? It was a big whiskey in Scotland. But yeah, all that history it's going to be great fun.
Fabulous.
Looking forward to Gordon get across there. Can we move on to the Feis?
Yes, we can move on to the Feis. So there'll be a lot of people on the Calmac ferry today. I would suspect from Campbelltown to, let's hope it's running, and there'll be a lot of Calmac and cheeses.
Very nice.
Scottish breakfast going on, I would imagine. First day tomorrow, Lagavulin Day, and I'm just going to run through the days. Sunday, Bruichladdich is on Sunday, so that's a big party day because they have the very good courtyard to do stuff in. Then we up to Caila, the biggest distillery I think on Islay. Big, so that's the 2 Diageo days at the beginning. I saw there was a new facial release. Obviously, they'll all have facial releases, but Caila have been very secretive about what theirs is. But you can overlook Jura from there, and then Laphroaig and Bowmore the next 2 days, and Ardnahoe on the Wednesday, Kilchoman on the Thursday, Bunnahabhain and Jura. So yes, Jura is involved in the Islay Whisky Festival because, let's face it, a Jura Whisky Festival would just be one, and it would be mad to do it at any other time. Finishing on Ardbeg. So yeah, it's a great it's going to be a great time for a lot of people, and
20,000 people descending this year, I believe.
20,000. There'll be a lot of people. There'll be a lot of people staying in tents and stuff like that. Now, of course, the other thing to remember is, of course, that there's 3 new distilleries going to be coming in the next 2 years or so. Wow. So we have, for those who, so we've got 9 distilleries there. Let's discount Jura so 9 distilleries. There's Portnatroon, which is, if anybody knows the geography of Islay, it's Port Ellen heading out to Laphroaig. It's going to be just outside Port Ellen, near the school, on the right-hand side, just as you start to walk towards Laphroaig, heading out of Port Ellen. That's Portnatroon. That is Elixir Distillers, which is Sukhinder Singh from the Whisky Exchange. They've also just acquired Tormore, which is another interesting distillery because it's got beautiful topiary. And when I'm heading into Speyside, when I drive past Tormore, I'm like, I've arrived.
Yes. And as we heard from a previous interviewee that you interviewed in The Hague, it will be a fully set up visitor centre that we can all go in there and enjoy. So
exactly,
you can arrive and have a cup of tea or a dram.
Exactly. So that's Portnatroon. Then, of course, there's Port Ellen.
Yes.
Diageo bringing back Port Ellen. I saw some pictures recently. I don't think it's far away. So that's just right beside Port Ellen Maltings. We saw it last year. We did a very, very, I thought, informative video outside of it.
It was us talking about no one would ever bring back old distilleries on.
No, why would you do that? Why exactly?
So, behind us there was
finger on the pulse as ever. Followed by, if you want to see them, they're on our socials. Another one about worm tubs and why nobody would ever use them. And we were standing at Ardnahoe at the time. And then finally, there's Lagan Bay.
Oh, yes.
By Ian MacLeod Distillers. That's us, by the way, if you've not worked that out. Ian MacLeod Distillers are building a distillery right opposite the airport. So again, geography-wise, right in between Bowmore and Port Ellen, there's an airport on the right-hand side if you're traveling from Bowmore to Port Ellen. Immediately, literally directly opposite the entrance to the airport is the entrance to what will become Lagan Bay Distillery, which is very, very exciting.
Yes.
So we are very excited by that. And
lovely. And just to sort of, for anybody listening, it's joined us. Go and search in the back catalogue of Whisky Unscripted. We're on Islay last August, and we met the Islay boys who make the Islay ales, who are also doing tastings at the Feis Ale this year, and they're putting together the projects, and also they'll have the brewery on site right next to the distillery. It's going to be really good.
It's going to be fabulous. Hopefully a couple of years and we'll be there. So you may see us at Feis in about 2 years' time. You might even see us there next year in some form, but very, very exciting. And, you know, why don't we take Smokehead there 1 year and just do mad things with it? That would be great. So
You've worked at Bowmore. Just a quick word about what the atmosphere's like these
Oh,
days.
it's fabulous. It's like it was. It's like it was for us at Speyside. Everybody mucks in. It's it's a fundamentally great week. Obviously, probably even more compressed because it's on an island. And you see everybody everywhere, and you can't get a minibus anywhere. You can't get a taxi. It's complete chaos in a way, but it's utterly fabulous, and every bar is packed out, and it's great, and there's people wandering around, and people just love it. It's utterly amazing. And Feis, I'm so glad that we can, hopefully in a couple of years, be involved and do some great stuff, and have a we might have to share a day with somebody else now these days, but brilliant. Really excited by that. So that's going to be utterly fabulous. So yeah, I mean, Bowmore is probably the one which everybody seeks out for the Feis Yield bottles more than any others. It's great fun. Lefroy Day I used to do as well. Very different vibe. Really great days. But I think it's probably generally accepted Bruichladdich Day is the big party. And because it's a Sunday, I think all the locals go. It's great. It's fabulous. So yeah.
Just on that festivals, before we head to talk about tour guides, I want to are touring around Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
Felipe Schreiberg is across there doing his
He
music.
is.
Yes. I don't know if you know him very well.
I do know him quite well. Yeah. Felipe is over there. He does his beautiful music and music and whiskey. Fabulous. I think he's just been in Campbelltown. He'll be going over to Islay. So that's good. I think he's going to be doing something at the festival as well. So he's over there. And everybody's in Campbelltown and Islay at the moment. I really feel I'm missing out. I've got bad FOMO.
Exactly. But he has put together just the top 10, just in chronological order, of festivals around the world. I just wondered if you want to just have a quick comment in each one of them.
Oh, right. I didn't know this yet. Do that.
This is from Forbes magazine. He writes from a lot of the highfalutin magazines. Number one, we've just been talking about it, the Islay Festival, Gordon.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, arguably, I think great festival, different to Spirit of Speyside. I think they're both on a par. Oh, yeah. Spirit of Speyside is just a slightly different, wider area.
Okay.
But
number two, he's got, sorry, just like number two, the Philip Schreiberg's list, Glasgow's Whisky Festival, organised by locals at Hampden Park, one of the most iconic soccer stadiums. Lots of new and unusual whiskies, he says, with gin and rum.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Glasgow Whisky Festival, to be honest, has really grown and is a great festival because it's obviously local to most of us. We get a great selection of whiskies. It's run by some really great people. Yes. And it's great to see its success. I mean, I was a little bit skeptical when it moved to Hampden, but having been there, it's a great day. It's a fabulous day. And I think it's in November.
It is. November 10th.
And I think there was one last year in February, which was sort of the first post-COVID one. And then there was another one in November. So I think it's a great festival. It's more of a standard festival in terms of tables and things like that, but they do it really well. So it's a good one. Absolutely.
Number three, I don't know if you've done this one, the Arctic Whisky Festival in the Norwegian city of Tromsø, which tends to focus on whiskies from around the world, the northernmost of its kind.
I've never been to Tromsø. I have done stuff up in sort of Norway and places like that, but I've never been to that one. Big market, relatively expensive. Oh my God. Nice. Quite expensive part of the world, but yeah, no.
Victoria Whisky Festival.
Take your jacket. Take your jacket to that one.
Victoria Whisky Festival in Canada.
I was there this year. Fabulous whiskey festivals there in January. It's always in January. And I do a bit of work in Alberta, so Calgary and Edmonton. Some great Glengoyne and Tamdhu fans and Smokehead fans there. And then I fly over to Victoria. They look after you so well. I would actually arguably put it a little bit higher, but yeah, what a festival. Well, love it.
I don't think this is in his order. It's just
all right.
Logical. But he says at number 5, the Whisky Show, Old and Rare.
Yes.
In Glasgow by online whiskey retailer at the Whisky Exchange. What's that, Gordon?
So that is a brilliant, again, a festival really aimed at the very old bottlings. So you can come along. I think you can spend quite a lot of money at that festival, but I think you get some amount of stuff to free as part of your ticket. Much more smaller quantities of people, but you'll have a whole load of, very interesting personalities there, and some amazing older bottles
I've
of
never been
whiskey.
to that one, God. I'd love to see the older bottles.
No, I think it's really interesting. We should probably go along. I think it's in London now, though. I think it's moved.
Right. The nth spring. The nth, I should say, spring 2019, 2020. The luxury whiskey experience lasting for 4 days in Las Vegas.
I've been to that as well. Yeah, in Vegas, whiskey in Vegas. Yeah, brilliant show. Really aimed at high rollers and the sort of limit. You know, you're pulling out your best whiskey at this one. So we were there this year with Rosebank, which went down an absolute storm.
It says it allows attendees to get close and personal with luminaries in the industry. How close and personal were you with some of the people?
Well, I was definitely there. I was definitely close. I was relatively personable. No, really, again, really aimed at the sort of collector stroke high. The people who want to buy and have the budget to buy those high whiskies. Really good show run by Mahesh Patel. And I think it's expanding this year as well into different markets. So that's going to be interesting.
God, this is why we do this show. That's a fantastic amount of information you're imparting here. This is Philippe Schreiberg's top 10 whiskey festivals in the world in Forbes magazine. No particular order, but number 7, Limburg Whiskey Fair in Germany. He says probably the major whiskey festival on any aficionado's calendar, known for its enthusiastic crowds and one of the largest selections of whiskey ever gathered for a festival.
He's summed it up beautifully. Yeah, Limburg is, again, a real whiskey connoisseur whiskey show. And again, you can seek out amazing bottles. You can seek out, you know, a lot of different things that you can't see at most other whiskey shows. And to the point that I believe that the Limburg Whiskey Show has effectively been, I don't know if it's involved with this or it's been, but there's another one that it's not, in Kaohsiung, which is in the southern city in Taiwan, very much a similar style show in terms of seeking out those rare independent bottlings and old. You can turn up at that and you'll see some very old Glengoynes and Tamdus and whiskies from around the port, you know, around the world. It's really, if you're a whiskey, you want to go to probably one of the best shows for whiskey connoisseurs in Europe. That's where you should go.
Oh, and last 3, Water of Life, the Water of Life Festival. It says, want to drink whiskey and fight cancer? The Water of Life Festival in New York as a charity event.
Yeah, now this is run by a good friend of the show. Well, he's not been interviewed on the show, but he's a good friend of mine, Matt Lurin. He is currently, he was in Glen Scotia and Springbank, and for the last couple of days, he'll be over on Islay. Matt's a big character. He's a doctor by trade and a big whiskey man. Lovely man. And he's put on this show. I've never been able to do it. I'm really hope we can maybe do it this year. Small, you know, not nothing too, but just a really intimate whiskey show. Does a great job in New York. Hopefully we can do it.
I love it. The attendees rotate through speed dates with exhibitors. Sounds
yes.
Round tables. Number 9, Spirit of Speyside Festival. We did the show last week.
Mm-hmm. Fabulous. I mean, there's only one distillery to visit during that place, of course, which is Tamdu. Joking. Fabulous whiskey festival. You know, it's the throw open the doors, particularly at Tamdu when we're not open normally, but just throw open the doors. Everybody gets involved, and it's a great 4 or 5 days. And by the end of it, we're absolutely knackered.
He says creates a unique experience for each visitor. Whiskey themed dinners, nature walks, concerts, none of which you'll find at other festivals. It is quite simply on its own with the
and it's such a stunning countryside. I mean, it really is such a great place to visit. You can, you know, everywhere, every corner you turn there's a brown sign to a distillery. You know, there's just it, you know, if you've never been to that part of the world, simply go. It's utterly fabulous. And on in late April, early May.
And finally, just in this list of not in any order, well done, Felipe, Dram Fest.
Oh, yeah. I was hoping that was going to be on the list because it is a fabulous just whiskey show. Christchurch in New Zealand. I've been to that as well. Christchurch in New Zealand, fabulous, sort of every 2 years, I think it is, run by Whiskey Galore in Christchurch, which is probably the preeminent specialist retailer in New Zealand. And obviously, you know, it's a long, long way away, but the amount of bottles and people that go there every year, I was hopefully going to go this year, but couldn't make it. Fabulous people that run it. And it's, again, you know, if you're in that part of the world, it's a long way to fly for a whiskey show. But if you're in Australia or even Hong Kong, it's definitely worth going to.
Honestly, Gordon, I put this list together. This show is absolutely unscripted. I thought, I wonder if Gordon will give us a chat in any of these. That's an amazing bit of information from each of these festivals. Well,
I mean, there are a few others that I would say is really good. Whiskey Live Paris is a great whiskey show. That's a really, really good whiskey show, which has a trade element, a consumer element. It's probably, for me, one of the preeminent shows in Europe in terms of the depth of people that are there. The Standard Whiskey Show in London, not the Standard, but not the Old and Rare, the one that's at the end of September in Old Billingsgate, another great whiskey show. Really, really good whiskey show. Great classes, great opportunities to go. You know, you've got other shows which have been around for a long time, like Whiskey Fest in New York. And there's plenty of, not just in New York, around the States, there's plenty of options. And you know as well as I know, if you go to Holland or Germany, you could be at a whiskey show every weekend.
It's fantastic. I mean, that one in Munich, the Finest Spirits, you know, if you like your beers, you like Munich, it's just wonderful.
Yeah.
Just really, really, really great shows. So
Exactly.
absolutely fantastic, Gordon. So you've just mentioned about going round the world, and they're all over the world, but people are coming to Scotland, they are coming to Campbelltown, are coming to Islay. And I think it's a great moment to launch our very informal and infrequent Insider's Guide. Not quite working for us, but it's just to lift the lid on what it is like to work sort of connected to the whiskey industry. So this is John McElwee. You may not know the name, Gordon, but you may have spoke to him. 25 years, as he'll mention, taking people around Scotland, predominantly whiskey tastings. If you're not working in whiskey, this might be one of the best jobs to do. I don't know how, would you do this in another life?
No, because I'd have to drive.
Yeah, that's
it's a slight downside.
If you listen to the interview, he actually flies people to Islay, you know, so people to drive when you're across there. So sit back, enjoy this Insider's Guide to being a private tour guide.
Good afternoon, John. How are you?
I'm very well, Gordon. How are you, sir?
Great stuff. We've just talked a little bit about you. Could you just explain who you are and what you do?
My name is John McElwee, and I'm a private Scottish tour guide, and I've been working in the industry for some 25 to 30 years, depending on how you want to calculate it.
Wow. John, why? Oh, you said about 25 years. Why did you start doing this?
I was a civil servant, and I basically was working for the Ministry of Defence in the 1980s, late 80s to the 90s, when the world was given the gift of computers from Microsoft, when you got all these posters saying, be all you can be, the longest journey starts with the first, from great little acorns grow great oak trees. And that's a funny thing, isn't it? Oak trees, we should be talking about whiskey. So I took the plunge. I conducted a survey of the Kingston Bridge, and I decided that 90% of the people I was watching on the bridge were out there getting paid for being out driving, doing something more exciting than I was doing. Then I decided, what can I do out there? So I thought to myself, get out and start some sort of luxury transport system where you could take people from A to B and they could work on the way, maybe from Glasgow to Edinburgh. That didn't quite work. Then I called that a chauffeur business. That didn't quite work. And we kind of drifted into doing some work for companies that did golf tours. Some people would do business days away at golf, and it kind of flowered from there. So that's, you know, I was asked to subsequently work for television companies, taking some pretty famous faces to and from meetings. And eventually that market became saturated, and a kind of niche market opened up where I became what was called a private driver guide, taking individuals on various types of tours, whether they were whiskey, golf, or whatever they were asking me to do. I was asked to do a couple. I didn't know how to do them, and eventually I got a good report card, so I started doing them all those years ago.
that's when, because my next question is why. I mean, predominantly you're doing whiskey tours, and that sort of answers.
Yeah.
It just drifted into whiskey. Would
Well,
you think that's just because the world was waking up to whiskey?
My interest in whiskey started in 1987 when I got married, and my wife was a buyer for a company, and they would used to give her a gift for all the stuff she bought. And then when she got married, they gave the husband the gift as well. And somebody gave me a gift, which was a book by Michael Jackson's Malt Whisky Companion. It was edition 1, and they gave me, don't laugh, a bottle of Glenfiddich No Age Statement. And I enjoyed reading the book, and soon came to realise that when I was talking about it to some people, no matter what, position in life they were, from directors of companies to the guy in the pub, when you could talk about whiskey well, you could acquit yourself well, the same way that you could acquit yourself by playing good golf on the golf course. It got me through a few interviews because you had to talk about something. People would listen to you, and so that you could talk in an informed, methodical way, so that you commanded their attention. And as I say, I left the civil servant in 1980, started the chauffeur service, and moved into just doing the tour guides, where during the tours people would listen intently. They thought you were some sort of expert because you read this book, and they were happy to listen to what you had to say.
Well, that gets us on to the tours. Just if you could hone in on certainly the whiskey ones, since we're on Whiskey Unscripted.
Yeah.
What are the popular tours?
Yeah.
Maybe in the past, the present, whatever you want to talk about. People want to come and see the big names.
Most of my tours nowadays encompass a marriage, not a blend. I'm throwing in some puns for you here. A marriage, not a blend. We don't talk about blends. Of different themes, from scenery, history, malt whiskey, golf, and get a lot of foodies thanks to all the chef programs, genealogical, geographical, archaeological, and so on. However, I'm often asked to lean more towards certain subjects, mainly historical scenery, but whiskey's became big over the years, and golf is still up there. These tours are easy to compose. People do want to see the big names, but more of the discerning whiskey fans are open to other suggestions, which sometimes have to come into play thanks to the logistics, availability of tours and timings. Clients are usually very impressed with their suggestions. So people are willing to see new places, suggestions, especially some new distilleries on Islay to get that. I've got to get that one right. The big draws are, of course, the Macallan. Many customers actually leave there pretty disappointed. That's a longer story. Oban is a big popular one, especially with Americans, I think, because of the bourbon. They used a wonderful phrase years ago. It was preferable to the American palate. Now, I used to often wonder why that was, but of course it was because it was using bourbon casks. Glenfiddich was the big one. It does a good big tour nowadays, but more so the Balvenie up at that point. Other include Glengoyne. It's a great one to hit from Glasgow, and it does a great tour. We'll talk about that maybe later. Glenlivet, Talisker, Glenfarclas, all the usual suspects. Suggestions by others such as Balblair, Glendronach, Aberlour always go down well. And regarding Islay, many people want to go there, but they don't realise the travelling involved. So I just fly them over there for 1 or 2 days. I have a driver over there that drives them about. I bring them back, but I've sent them to the distilleries that I've chosen for them, if you know what I mean.
Well, that's brilliant. John, experiences, possibly whiskey related, out there, maybe off the beaten track, locations, meals, drinks. If anybody come to Scotland, what would you recommend?
Well, regarding people come to Scotland with different levels of knowledge. They're preloaded with different expertise levels. They maybe have been studying it for maybe no more than you or I do. That maybe some of them have got sensational collections, and in question, they come with varying degrees of expertise, which you have to assess when you meet them, so that you can pitch in their kind of level or break it down to so that they understand it. But there's lots of different types of tours, and to me, unquestionably, the king of tours, and with apologies to everybody else here, but the king of tours, which I would describe as waist and shoulders above, head and shoulders above, most of them, is the Balvenie tour, and that's thanks to the setting, the content, the ambassadors, and of course the whiskey, but not their core 12-year-old doublewood. That's kind of, in my opinion, tiring a wee bit, but there's some sensational ones. If you go up to the older ones, people do prefer other expressions, and they are willing to pay for the 21s and the 25s, as I'm sure you've witnessed. And recently, I think I was up doing a tour where I had a very, very discerning couple. They both work for a rather large computer company, and it's not the Apple one. And there was a young lady there, and I can't remember her name. I think it was Becky or Rebecca. She did the tour. And Glengoyne this year so far has took the prize for the most informative tour, because they had all of the dynamics, temperatures, loads, where did the barley come from, all that stuff. They had every answer to every question, which a lot, and I understand this, that a lot of distilleries are limited because they have seasonal staff that are playing the broken record, so to speak. Yeah. But Rebecca gave a very, very good acquittal account of them. The same way, I mean, I think years gone by, there's been other staff like yourself that would do it. And, we had Joanne there as well, and yourself.
Of course.
And just while we're on the subject, I have to give a bit of credit to some other distilleries, varying in price, of course. The Glenlivet Archives Tour, that's a distillery that's put themselves together again. Big story. The Archives Tour is £100 per person, but I actually added up what it would have cost you to buy that stuff in a pub, the samples that they got, and they were way into the £200 mark. Other great tours to be found at Balblair, Glendronach, and guess what? Dalwhinnie. Do a brilliant tour, but I'm talking about tours, standard tours here, not warehouse tasting tours. Because, well, I'm talking about that, if I could just add, there are people who've come and done tours in the past that still want to come and do whiskey, so we do the warehouse tours only with them. They don't need to see the mechanics of it again. So that's my thoughts on that one.
That's great, John. That's really interesting, because you're getting the feedback from people that jump back in the car.
That's it.
And these things stand the test of the customer. You're getting it firsthand from them. Now, can I put you in the back seat of your car? And I know it's a horrible thought if you have to take yourself round and look at yourself in the mirror. You're in the back seat. Where would you go in Scotland? Whiskey related. It doesn't need a distillery. It's just an experience in Scotland. Whiskey's in there.
Bearing in mind one important thing, I don't really get to go anywhere between March and October because that's my busy season. But if I had a time off, it would obviously depend on what the weather was doing. So on a nice day, not too hot, just sitting outside with your sweater on, having a pub lunch at the Jigger Inn, overlooking the 17th road hole, the most famous hole in the world of golf, watching the people play their approach shot into the 17th, thinking I could have done better than that. That's, of course, after a good feed with a beer and a continuous supply of malt whiskies. I could do much better than they could. There's a great selection in there. It's not restricted. Too many times you go to places where you can clearly see that they're limited to who they can put their whiskey on their gantry by, because it's coming from a certain supplier. But the Jigger Inn has got carte blanche. They'll get you in whatever they want. And of course, the Jigger Inn is only a short walk to the next pub or restaurant or your hotel. In the wintertime, on a really dreich night, basically any hotel or pub with a non-restricted selection of malts, as we just mentioned, a roaring fire and a sea view with some good company will do. One of the top drawer ones for that is Kinloch Lodge and their whiskey, the Talisker Whiskey Room overlooking Loch Sleat. And that's an extreme example because it's 5 hours to get up there.
That's brilliant, though. That's the level of detail I'm looking for, John. You're absolutely ticking all the boxes. Now, I've got this image of you in that Kinloch Lodge sampling of whiskey, and I know you like your whiskies. I know you have occasionally dabbled in auctions. I just wanted to know, John, anything come across your desk you've either had a wee drink of or you bought anything interesting in the world of whiskey from your perspective?
Well, as you know, I go round the doors of all the whiskies quite a lot, and yeah, there's some that have kind of dropped a little bit in their kind of balance and quality, and others that have risen to it. And okay, taking a leaf out of that wonderful, in my opinion, the best whiskey writer of all time, Michael Jackson, not the singer. He kind of never said this in his book, but he led you into if you can't say anything good about a malt or anything, just don't say anything at all. So let me try and do my best to stay away from what I think has happened to a lot of distilleries when the qualities of their core ranges kind of lessened a wee bit, and concentrate on the positives. And there's nothing, absolutely nothing I like to see more. It brings the biggest smile to my whole face, my brain. When just about anything, and I'm talking about anything from any make of car or anything like that, when it goes from a reputation that is a poor or a so-so reputation, and they work hard and they hit the nail on the head, and something becomes wonderful, great, borderline, legendary. So in my opinion, here's just an example of something that, in terms of quality, and the biggest word that I can give to anybody for whiskey is balance. So there's no high spots, there's not too much of something, just a wee bit of everything. Value for money, and the presentation in the box, in the bottle that it comes with. If you can get your hands on the new RM10, in fairness, they've done well. In my opinion, the best malt of the year for the last 3 years, under £100, let alone the fact that it's only going to cost you £35 to £49. What a swing of prices I've seen this one. And you know, others that have sold at the same unknown level of greatness include, and credit where credit's due, Daft Mill are doing wonderful things. Some of the Kilchoman expressions, Deanston are doing really well. They've hit the post a few times, but they've scored the goal a few times. And I'll tell you what, credit where credit's due, when some core ranges kind of dip and then they come back and they come great. I'm going to say it. Glengoyne 12-year-old made my cut. I have to say it's a go-to one for me, and it must be good because my wife likes it. And just for instance, for interest, I'm not really interested in some expressions of producers that try to woo me to buy bottles with cartons that look like they're potpourri or bubble bath or scary buzz that's going to get you through, or maybe a Medusa that's going to turn you to stone, or even cartons that are so bright in colour they could be used in a road safety campaign. I can't even begin to imagine what's in the bottles. Did I say I was going to behave?
No, John, no, we don't want you to behave. That's not the point of this show. No, I know exactly where you're coming from. I know. John, back to the job. Would you recommend it as a job if you were meeting your younger self? Would you say, John, get into this gig?
There is a back to the 1990s where they said aim for the sky. There's a lot of kids that I see. I'm now 58, going on 900. There's a lot of kids that you watch going in to start working in the distilleries, and you wonder where they're all going. And I truly believe that if I knew then what I know now, then I would have made every effort to become a malt master.
Yes,
that's a very, very big.
Not so much the tour guide. You've been in the process of making whiskey.
So say again, sorry.
You've been in the process of making whiskey, as opposed to
I would want to
be
in the process somewhere. Yeah. Of making whiskey, but I would like to have striven to become the malt master. And to me, that word malt master, that's not a master blender. That's the highest of the high, in my opinion. In my opinion, there has only ever been one in Scotland, and he shall remain nameless at the moment. He's still alive, so there you go. But these jobs in distilleries strike me as very difficult to actually get into. I don't think there's any kids in school nowadays that kind of go through school, get their qualifications and think, I'm going to go and work in the whiskey industry. They might go to marketing and then get into it. So they have, you have to go through a different avenue to get into it. So, and I think there's a few bits and pieces of politics as well involved in it. So what do I think I would probably try and do? I'd probably try and become a private tour guide where I could take customers round all of the distilleries, extolling their virtues, and being allowed to be a grumpy old man where necessary. And hey, hang on a minute, that's what I am. So I'm happy, you know.
That's great. It's opinions. That's what whiskey does. It gives us opinions, whether it's ones you like or not like. We can't. It's a whole idea about whiskey. John, it's been a fantastic interview. Is there, just with either the whiskey or the job or the industry, anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're living in a world of instant, and people are too quick to not listen to people and jump. My opinions, your opinions, are our own opinions, and they are arrived through years of listening and observing things and extracting and decided what you actually think. People nowadays, we're running too fast, and we need to accept that theirs and our other people's opinions are only opinions, and that they are open to interpretation and discussion. They're usually non-negotiable unless we decide to change them, having listened to other people. People are only too quick, as I say, to jump over conversations. When they hear the slightest thing that they think they're going to disagree with, and as you ever watch the House of Commons, they jump all over themselves. They need to let people finish, because invariably they answer the question. This is what whiskey's all about. When you're talking to somebody about whiskey, malt whiskey, about what you're getting out the glass, people will let you finish. And then they'll come in and they'll gently, this is the best thing, it's like golf, the etiquette of golf. People will say, I'm getting stewed fruit. And the other person might say, I'm getting raisins. And it's the same thing, it's just a slight bit different. And people smile and they have a laugh. They don't want to kill each other, So that's what makes whiskey the special, special thing. Nobody wants to argue, they just want to discuss. It's not like football, who's right or wrong. It's not who's got the best car or the best golf clubs. That's what makes whiskey really magical.
That's absolutely, what a way to finish, John. And I can just ask you, my final question is, what's the next few weeks or few months? Have you got trips booked?
I'm working till between now and it's the 23rd of May. And thanks to the wrath of people wanting to travel from overseas to Scotland, I'm going to have to be very careful, because between the 23rd of tomorrow, the 24th of May, and the 14th of October, I have 4 days off.
Right. Yeah, good.
Yeah, and so I'm very, very busy. I think the distilleries need to watch out. They need to get more staff. They need to get more tours.
Yeah.
And another thing is it's becoming difficult to book tours. You've got to book them in advance and prepay them. And and sometimes you can't get the tour. So I think a couple of the bigger distilleries that are doing lots of tours need to look at maybe extending what tours they do. Glengoyne is a classic example. Many times I phoned there and I can't get the time that I want, so I've got to reshuffle the day and turn it on its head to be able to get to Glengoyne, or indeed some of the big names. You're becoming few and far between. So it's just I will say, just a wee feedback for yourself. It's becoming difficult to get tours and the times that you want.
Yeah. John, I'll try and get that. You've now got on the podcast, so you got the pecking order, surely, of
thanks very much. And I hope you found it. I hope you found some of the things that we've talked about interesting.
Absolutely fantastic and a fascinating discussion. And just my final, I mentioned to Gordon once you come off this interview, that's why you're so popular. As you said, you had to assess the people's level of knowledge before you really, started taking around. And I'm sure that's a mistake a lot of newbies might make, not assessing.
Yeah. You've got to assess the people's level of knowledge and the pace that they want to work at. Some people can want to do a distillery in 45 minutes, others will take 2 hours. So the pace, the level of expertise, and you've got to get to know the people that you want to. And then sometimes it's a case of marrying up what their tastes are to the distilleries you're going to take to them. I might ask them questions like, what kind of food do you like? Are you a red meat or a white meat person, being sherry or bourbon? Do you smoke? So I need to get through the palates. I need to get through the taste buds. So we'll go to a smoky one because I've got to defeat the depleted taste buds. I've got to pop all these questions to them and paddle my way through, pulling from them where I'm going to take them if they're open to suggestions.
John, that's absolutely fascinating. You know, it's really an eye-opening, you know, sort of view of what it is to take people around Scotland, especially in a whisky field. John, thank you so much for joining us on Whisky Unscripted. Have a very, very successful, I know you will have, summer. Yeah. And come back and see us again.
Thank you for that. And after all that, I think I need a drink.
Cheers.
Right.
So there we go, Gordon. A great interview from John.
Yes.
And what do you think? He gave us his favourite place for a dram, 17th hole, St Andrews, at the road hole, jigger in, having a dram.
Nice.
Can you think of whiskey related? A good view or a good meal? Where would you?
Oh, that's
listening. Where would you like to just say? Scotland's dram in hand and a view.
Oh, that's a toughie.
Isn't it?
That's a toughie.
You don't want to be walking too much, you know.
I think I've said this before, but I think if I'm on Isla, it's all about where you are. If I'm going to be on Isla, only because I've done it with some really good friends, sitting on the wall at Bamore is about as good as it gets.
Oh, that's nice.
Looking out over Lochindal, I did that with the late, wonderful Dominic Roscrow, who unfortunately left us a few months ago, which was a real shame. But I think sitting on the wall at Bamore is brilliant. I think looking out over the bays, or looking out over onto Jura from Ardnahoe, that's a beautiful view. We saw that last year.
Isla's good. Isla's good. That's a good one.
Isla is good. Isla is good. But, you know, even, you know, around the world,
Well, listen,
I tell you, I did one.
Cut across.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of seasons ago, it was me and you, end of season, Christmas in the pot still. We're sitting having a couple of pies. Talk to Big Frank.
Exactly. No, it's all about the moment. You know, I think I've been lucky enough to travel all over the world with whiskey, and I'm trying to think of all the amazing places that I've been. But you know, even overlooking Hong Kong Harbour one night, drinking whiskey with some friends was amazing. It's who you're with more than as much as where you are. And what about you, Gordon? What's your favourite place?
Yeah. As I was saying,
in the sauna.
I like a sauna. I do like a sauna. I like a bar. Even that interview today we had in Borlange, you would never think, well, you would think 3 hours north of Stockholm, lovely village overlooking a river, 170 people loving their whiskey, beautiful setting. It was, you know, talk about in the moment. That was
the only downside for them is they had to listen to you
for almost 3 hours. Yes. Gordon, are you ready on this theme of tour guides traveling around Scotland? Are you ready to play our legendary feature? You have reached your whiskey destination.
We have been inundated with people asking for this feature to come back. So to all the people that have written to us,
this is the finale of this episode.
Dave and Tom, thanks very much.
This, I'm going to have to give you a wee clue at the beginning and maybe even at the end. It's a tough one. Opened in 2016. Stop. From Glasgow, merge onto the M80 towards Stirling. And if you've never listened to the show, by the way, this is a website. You go to contact us, you get the directions, I take out where we're going, and then I supply it to Gordon to try and guess where we're going. Where's the distillery? So guess the distillery. From Glasgow, merge onto the M80 towards Stirling for 11 miles. Keep left on the M876 towards Kincardine Bridge and Falkirk for 19 miles. You're over the bridge. Take the second exit to the B8046 towards the Forth Road Bridge and A904. Turn right on that A904 onto the M90. 1.3 miles head east on the A92 towards Glenrothes and Kirkcaldy. Take the exit onto B981 and A910 towards Kirkcaldy West and Cardenden. Take the first exit, continue on the B922 after 2.3 miles, turn right into Kinglassie Road, Glenrothes. Keep left towards the Whitehill and Viewfield. Turn left onto Whitehill, turn left onto White Craigs Road. 0.7 miles, turn left, 20 yards. You've reached your whiskey Destination, and whiskey director Ian Palmer will see you now.
It's one of a few. I'm not 100% sure. Is it Inchdairney?
Oh yes, it is Inchdairney.
Oh, brilliant! Because I just
a
bought
tough one because the directions were heading into deepest Fife, but I did say Glenrothes, and I did say it opened in 2016, and I just think it's such an amazing, such a fascinating ways, sort of creating the whiskies in Inchdairney. Really,
I've bought a bottle of their Rye Law, which is a single. I think it's a single grain whiskey. It is a single grain whiskey from Inchdairney. A beautiful bottle. I've not opened it yet. I'm looking forward to trying it. So I'm glad we got there. That's good.
That's right. You have reached, Gordon. We've reached our destination. That's been quite an episode.
Yeah, look, I'm just wishing everybody a great Feis. I'm sure it'll be good fun. We'll be back with episode 3, which will be, well, as you may have noticed, the timings have gone a little awry, mainly because we're traveling and doing stuff, and this isn't, but we're also noticing and you keep up with this, we also notice a lot of people following up on older episodes. So continue to do that. We'll continue to generate new content for you and new episodes with our inane chat and even a bit of education.
And we might have got very much so this episode. Then we might even be live from Dallas. Dallas.
Yeah, Dallas. You could go down. So when I went to Dallas, I'm slightly obsessed with JFK's murder.
Oh, right. Yes.
And so I said to the local rep I was with, I said, look, I've only got one request. I need to drive down what you would call past the book depository, down, I think it's called Daily Plaza. And I went down there and I was like, I've got a video of it. And I was like, looked at the grassy knoll.
Has it changed?
And no, it's exactly the same as it was in the video. So I drove down there, and for me that was a bit. I was like, because I've always wondered what the hell happened there. So if you're in Dallas and you've got to go for a walk and find it and go and because it's just a bit of history, isn't it?
It is.
And you could go to South Fork as well, although it's actually nowhere near Dallas. It's quite a long way out of town.
Right.
That's where Dallas was obviously filmed.
Actual Dallas.
Dallas. But if you look at it on a map, it's not easy to get to.
Actually, for research purposes, I do the history of Glengoyne. The stars came to Glengoyne in the 1970s or the early 80s, similarly the cast of Dallas. So I could do my research. Part of this. Right, Gordon, we have to go. I'm going to raise my tornado smokehead and wish you all the best. Cheers.
Bye.
Whiskey Trail.